So what we have here is my 1999 Toyota Camry that I took to Barrie, Ontario. And this is the first Camry I've got to run good inside of a demolition derby track. And honestly, I am impressed. There has been everything that I wanted this car to do, it did. Kind of had a little bit of issues inside the track, spinning and sputtering, but I actually don't think that was my electrical job with the with all the wires I cut. I actually think that's coil packs. This car was running amazing. I was track shotting people at the front. I was track shotting people at the back. Everything was going great, but then I took the clutch out of it. This will be the 4th manual car I've ran this year, and this is the first one I've took a clutch out of. So don't say that I can't drive manual. This thing here had a bad clutch going into the demolition derby, so it just kind of got to the point where it's at now. The only piece that I really broke was the trailing arm. As you can see here, let's just... Yeah, anyway, that trailing arm's broken. I did lose that tire. Sheet metal did come in towards the tire quite a bit, so that's not really ideal, but this is my first one that I've had really run, and as you can see, I actually took some pretty big shots here on passenger side. As you can see, behind the door is piled right in. Everybody was making fun of how I did the trunk on this car, and honestly, I love how this thing came in. The trunk lid came right in underneath the speaker deck. As you can see, the blue inside there, and you can see it over here as well. Came in underneath the speaker deck, so it's kind of tying itself together in a nasty, nasty ball. Now, the only thing I've really got to do is I've got to make sure these rear frame rails continue coming up, because it did bend where I notched it, but it didn't really do a second one. So I'm not too sure. We'll see how high this stays up or if it goes down any lower. But the hits I was doing with the back of this car, I'm actually really surprised with how it went. Now let's get to the front. The front of this thing was a weapon. I was using this to the point where I seen this threaded rod bend, and I actually thought the front end was gone. I thought the front end was imploding on itself, and it wasn't. I can't believe how well the front of this car stayed straight. I was track shotting people with the front and then the back and then the front, and as you can tell, that bumper is on a wee bit of a twist, so the frame did bend. So I can't say that the frame isn't bent. Back in here on passenger side, there is a factory notch in the frame, and that's where it bent. And then if you notice down here at subframe, it actually started bending there as well. So that's going to have to be something that I start looking out for in other cars as well. But the amount of shots I was making with the front end of this thing was phenomenal. I couldn't believe how this thing was holding up. I didn't even blow the rad inside this or nothing. This car here runs so good that it'll fire up pretty much instantly. Didn't even get hot. I couldn't believe how well this thing ran inside the ring. I couldn't believe the power. I couldn't believe how well I was able to push people and use the weight of the car to actually enhance my hits. A lot of time when I'm in smaller cars, I kind of use my body to help put a little bit of extra weight behind it, because I'm not a small kind of guy here. I'm 240 pounds, but with this car here, I didn't have to do that. This thing felt like it had so much weight when it was hitting people, it was just spinning them right out of the way. There's even more I could have done to this car. If you notice, my cage is actually not bolted to the floor. If I had bolted that to the floor, I am pretty sure that would have made this thing even better. I could have bolted the cage through the doors. I didn't do that. I don't have a rear window bar. There's plenty of things I could have done to this car to make it even stronger. But this one here, like I said, was a tester because it's manual, and the fact that it wasn't really the cleanest car. Some of the stuff that actually went bad inside the car is, if you follow this rear seam back, the seam here is actually splitting. And I'm not really sure how I'm going to fix that, but I will have to do some thinking. But it still hasn't came into the point where it's anywhere near my gas tank protector. So that's kind of nice. I'm definitely pleased with this car. I'm definitely going to start running more of them, and hopefully we can pull out some wins with these Toyota Camrys, because these things are tough. I've never driven something this tough. I've driven rear-wheel drive small cars, from Camaros to Mustangs to Volvos. I've driven full-size front-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive, and I think this thing is even tougher than Lumina's. So that's saying something. I've driven a 73 Cadillac, and it didn't feel as hard as this thing when it hit people. It really didn't. I'm extremely happy with how this car performed in Barrie, and thanks very much for watching. And make sure you guys come back tomorrow to see more videos on Zach's workshop, and we can hopefully get into the build thread on this car very shortly, so you guys can see what I've done to bring it to the point where it is now.